All right, hello again, PreCalc. So the first video was on sum and difference formula, a couple finding, a couple simplifying. We did all that. At the end of, I did not give homework at the end of that video. At the end of this video, you'll get a couple homework questions. So this is going to be a pretty short video, only about 3 questions I'm going to go over, and then we'll flip it over to the homework. Okay, so you might see something like this, which is a piecewise functions, right? So we have 3 functions over here represented. And so then it's going to ask you, you're going to get a question like this where it's going to ask you, identify the functions here in the piecewise function. I'm not going to go into specific because I haven't, labeled this too correctly and all that. I just want to kind of go over how to identify it, okay? Well, for this, we want a parabola, right? So it's a positive parabola, first of all. So I know it's going to have something to do with x squared, or just at least a positive coefficient here. It could be 2x squared, I don't know, for all I know, or half x squared, I don't know. But I know it's got to be positive coefficient, a coefficient. It's going to be a parabola, okay? It's going upwards. And if you really want to test it, you can say, oh, well, I got a y-intercept of 1, so what has a y-intercept of 1? You can kind of identify that way. But the key here is, what are the restrictions here? Where is it? What is it limited to? And it looks like over here, it is limited to, if you go at the -3, so we know x has to be, it caps out at -3, does not go lower than -3. So x has to be greater than -3. But we also know, and it's greater because it has an open circle. Over here, we know it kind of caps off at, I mean, this is kind of hard to, I mean, I didn't draw this very well, but if I were to extend this out. Okay, so this kind of caps off at the 2 right there. So this one was at -3, this one's kind of at 2. On the actual test itself, it'll be very clear because it'll be, it'll be done by computer, so it won't be ghetto like mine, okay? But it kind of at 2, so we know this parabola exists to the left of that, so less than that. So we know x is going to be less than, x is less than, since it's filled in circle, we have to say or equal to. Less than or equal to 2, okay? So this parabola is going to be positive parabola with this restriction right here. Cool. Well, then what's this going to be? Okay, now I want you to think about it. There's a few different ways you can get a J curve like this. Okay, you could have maybe, like a log, an exponential. It's possible you have rational expressions, a few different ways you can get something like this. But just whatever you do, just keep in mind, there's gonna be a clear asymptote. This asymptote is at x equals 2. So x cannot equal to 2 in this function because it will never equal to 2. Or as a matter of fact, anything less than 2. So I want you to keep an eye for that, okay? The restriction on this is obviously just going to be one simple restriction, which is going to be x is greater than 2 because everything is to the right of 2. Okay, x must be greater than 2. And we actually know that because of this restriction right here. Since the parabola reaches 2 and it includes 2, well, then this one's not going to include 2. On the back end here, for this guy right here, same thing. Except the restriction on this guy is going to be x is less than, because it exists to the left of -3. However, yeah, exists to the left of -3. Keep in mind that's an asymptote, so we cannot include -3 on this because it is an asymptote. Okay? Other than that, you just have to look for something like that. I'm not going to go too much into detail into the piecewise, but it should be fairly obvious. I want you to use your, a little bit of critical thinking and common sense to come up with something like that, okay? Two more questions. My voice kind of broke out a little bit. All right. Moving on here, we're going to go to, how about something like this? You want to simplify. Actually, no, the direction shouldn't simplify. It would be find. I want you to find, let's the sine of the cosine inverse of -1/2. Okay, so what does this mean? Let's do this first, and then we can find the sine of that. This means what angle, okay, what degree, what angle is going to have a cosine of -1/2? Let's see. Cosine of -1/2. No, 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 no. Oh, yes. Anything else has a cosine of yes. So we have 2 of them here. 4 pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3. Then it asks us to find the sine of those. Okay, so let's find the sine of those. Okay, so sine of 2 pi over 3 is negative half. Sine of 4 pi over 3 is also negative half. So we only have one solution here. That is going to all equal to negative half. And we now have what we need. There you go. Perfect. Okay, let me just make sure I did that right. Cosine of 2 pi over 3. Oh, sorry. A cosine of half. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. That is not that. The angle which has a cosine of negative half is 2 pi over 3 or 4 pi over 3. I need to find the sine of that. See? I made a mistake. Nobody said that. The sine of that is root 3 over 2. The sine of this is negative root 3 over 2. So I do have two solutions. Root 3 over 2 and negative root 3 over 2. So I'm just going to write this as plus or minus root 3 over 2. Okay? Sorry about that mistake. It looked a little fishy to me. Okay? And let's do one more. And this last one's going to be a simple inverse question. So I want you guys to find inverse of f of x. Okay? Well, not fin, but find the inverse of f of x. And let's get f of x. That is going to be f of x equals cube root of x plus 5 quantity of minus 2. All right, let's do this. First rule, I am going to write this out as y equals cube root of x plus 5, all minus 2. I'm going to do that so now I can switch the x and the y. X equals all minus 2. Now we need to isolate the y. Solve for y, everything else got to go. Let's do this. This is just a review for you guys. That's going to be x plus 2 equals cube root of y plus 5. I need to find the inverse of that cube root, which is going to be cube. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm going to be left with x plus 2 cubed on this side equals, those cancel out, I'm left with y plus 5. And then the last step is going to be to subtract the 5. What I do to one side, I do to the other. And I'm left with x plus 2 cubed minus 5 equals y. And that right there is our inverse of f of x. Excuse me. So can we leave it like this? Absolutely. Do you need to get x plus 2 and multiply it by itself 3 times, x plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2? Absolutely no need. That'll take way too long. Just leave it like that. Okay, that's your inverse. All right, I told you this one's going to be a little bit shorter. And there are your 6 questions, homework questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And sorry, I had to squeeze 6 over on this side. All right. Thanks again, guys. This is the video. Make sure everything is due Friday at 11:59 by 11:59 p.m. It's all due it on a separate sheet of paper. This is going to be due. Your Khan Academy is going to be due. Your practice test is going to be due. And then your quiz on Friday is going to be available. You have to take it with a time limit. All right. Thanks, guys.